A very good evening, everyone. I welcome all of you to today's sociology, rather social issues webinar. A very good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you. I hope I am audible, I hope I am visible, and as you might be aware, this is the second webinar on social issues that we are going to conduct. The reason is very clear because talking about UPSC mains exam. Social issues is a very critical segment of GS paper 1. GS paper 1 syllabus clearly tells you that you need to have a thorough understanding of Indian society and its uniqueness. So these are two things that we have to be very, very clear about. And therefore, in the previous webinar, we had started with the first and the most fundamental topic, which was what is Indian society? Why is it unique? Let me quickly remind you why. And then we will proceed with the four topics of today. Now, what is the intention behind these webinars? What do I want to accomplish from this? My very clear purpose, as I promised you last time, is that we will finish the syllabus of entire Indian social issues GS paper 1 and social justice GS paper 2, so that later you do not have to study separately for these topics after prelims. So through these webinars, I will finish all the syllabus of social issues and social justice. That's the purpose. Thank you. Most welcome. Now, in the previous class, I had discussed with you what is Indian society. Before that, what is society? Clearly, we had spoken about a society is a group of people, not any group of people, a group of people who have some degree of interaction between themselves. They are interacting with each other. They have something in common, that is a culture. They share a common culture with each other. The third and very important thing is that these people in a society follow certain norms and rules which all of them have to abide by. And only when a group of people interact with each other, only when a group of people share a common culture, a culture is the way you behave, what you eat, what you talk, whichever language you use, what clothes you are wearing, and what traditions and customs you are following. All these are a culture. So people in a society have to share a culture, they have to interact with each other, and they are always a group. If this is a society, then is India a society? Can India be called a society? Yes or no? Not really, not completely. Because India does not have the standard features of a society. We are a huge geopolitical entity where people from eastern India have nothing to do with people from southern India. There is no similarity of language, there is no similarity of religion, there is no similarity of culture, there is no similarity of any kind. Sometimes there is no interaction either. Then is India a society? Well, therefore, India is not one consolidated society. India is an amalgamation. India is an umbrella which has many small, tiny societies clubbed together. And therefore, in the last webinar, I had shared with you very good certain words like Indian society is a polycultural society. Indian society is a myriad society. Indian society is a motley society. We are a composite society, or we are a plural society. All these words can be used for India because in India we have many small societies which are trying to live together under the same political identity, and therefore we are very, very unique. Another very good question. People often ask, if India is not one standard society, then why is it still continuing to exist? If India is composed of many small societies clubbed together, why don't people fight with each other and get separated? What is forcing us to live together? To that, we will give the answer today. there is a reason why everyone is forced to live together. And that reason is Indian Constitution. Yes, we are a diverse culture on which there is a superimposed constitutional political unity. Even if we do not want to stay together, we have to stay together. Article 1 Indian Constitution. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Whether we like it or not, we have to therefore stay together. So, here in this lecture, that's true, economically as well. So, here in this lecture today, after having finished talking about India is composite, India is pluralistic, polycultural, heterogeneous, today we are going to talk about how and why is India so polycultural and how come it is such a composite society. So, therefore, let's try to understand step by step what are the diversities that yes, that's why most of the topics I have looped in for today's lecture. That's why. Okay? Yeah, you can do that. All right. On that note, what kind of diversities do we have? What are the different heterogeneities that India experiences? A topic from which GS paper will keep questioning you again and again. I am talking about GS paper 1. If you please check the PYQs, which you should after the prelims exam now, those of you, my dear, who are writing the prelims this time, for them, let it be. Don't bother. But for them who are not writing prelims this time, please go and check the PYQs after the webinar today before you sleep. Right from 2015 to 2023, you will see questions on Indian society like, why is Indian society heterogeneous? In India, do we have smaller pockets of sub-societies? Is India a uniform, homogeneous society? All of that. So you will come to know questions in this topic are very direct. Even those who have nothing to do with sociology will understand that the questions are very straight. You need to just finish the syllabus once. Not only are these topics very, very similar to economics, history, and constitution, but also they give you an edge because they enable you to write essay paper very, very well. Is that clear? Yes, I have reduced the size of the pen. And if video is a problem, I recommend just please refresh your link once. Okay? That might help you. Okay. Yeah. In the last lecture, we had spoken about in the last lecture, why is India society called unique? I gave you certain points if you remember. The first point that I had spoken about with you is that Indian society is unique because India is a heterogeneous society. Thank you. Heterogeneous society, as I said, polyculture, diverse, myriad, motley, pluralistic. Second, if you remember, I had also told you one more thing, that in India, there is a kind of social change that is circular or cyclic in nature. I'm not sure whether all of you remember that, but maybe some of you do. In India, we experience cyclical social changes. We are not like a Western society. We cannot expect that we start from rural and end up post industrial. We cannot imagine that we start from 12th century and end up in the 22nd century straight. No, we don't have that kind of a unilateral change. We don't have. We have a circular change. We keep coming back to the same square one. Example, we stopped eating millets ages back. So many diseases are coming back to millets. Joint family broke down for nuclear family. Comes COVID pandemic, back to joint family. Patriarchy started during later Vedic period. Back to patriarchy today. Don't we have patriarchy? Who will justify the witch hunting? Who will justify the honor killing? Who will justify less than 1/4 women in Lok Sabha? Who will justify fight based on religion? Who will justify reservation based on caste? So therefore, we know that we don't go ahead. We keep rotating in circles. Yeah, back to agriculture, absolutely. Yeah. The third thing I told you that India is very unique is that Indian society is very religious. Now, do believe that in India we have a dominant religious outlook always, while many other societies have already begun secularizing. In social issues, the word secular is not the same as secularizing. The word secular means the government will treat every religion with the same respect. Secularizing, when you stop believing in religions, that's secularizing. Most of the societies, when they become industrial, they become secularized. Religion becomes less important. Remember Industrial Revolution and Europe and the Renaissance. But think of India. Today, India is about to be the third largest economy on the globe. Indian stock markets have bypassed Hong Kong and many other economies of South Asia. India's GDP is touching 8.6%, but today also in India, the major problem has been communal violence, minority reservation, the problems with Khak Panchayat and honor killings, the problem with inter-religion, inter-caste marriage and conversion. Now, these are certain issues that form the backbone of our politics. So, do you really think we are secularizing? Not really. So, therefore, in India, we are deeply religious. And one last thing about why Indian society is so unique. Indian society is so unique because today, in the modern day India, the kind of culture that we have is known as a hybrid culture. You and I are all living in the hybrid culture. This is not the Western culture. This is not the Indian culture. This is a culture hybrid that is a development because of assimilation of two cultures, one Western, one Indian. When they blend, they create a new culture that's neither Indian nor Western, but it is very hybridized. For example, all of us Indians here, the language of the class, English. More students wearing Western clothes, Western cuisine, Western music, Western education. Now, all that means that we are living in a cultural hybrid from your Domino's to your McDonald's to your fascination with everything that's a Western import. Yeah, we are living in a globalized world, and that's why the hybrid culture. So, do remember, this is why, yeah, Western movies, India is a unique society. Have you understood? Now, if India is unique, yeah, that's true. But that's a very political uniqueness. That's a political thing that you're talking about. That India is a quasi federal country. We have a federalism with unitary bias. That's a valid point, but that's for political science and polity. Here, we are talking only in reference with society, right? So let's assume that India is unique because of all these four systems. Now, if India is so unique, let's quickly elaborate the point number one before we later go to point number two and three and four. If anybody is experiencing problems with audio or video, kindly please refresh your link. It will help. Heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means something that is a mixture, something that is not uniform, right? Something that is mixed of different elements. For example, if you mix sand and water, both will not mix together uniform, right? There will be clearly sand visible in the water. You can separate them. That's a heterogeneous mixture. Similarly, in Indian society also, we are not uniform. We are composed of so many religions and castes and languages and tribes and regions, none of which are same to each other. We are heterogeneous. Do you understand that? So now, if you permit, can I proceed with the first topic? Why is Indian society diverse and heterogeneous? Let's have a look. Yes, a hybrid culture is a mix of West plus Indian culture. That's correct. That's correct. Indian society is both. It is a salad bowl, definitely. It is also a mixture. Why? Because none of it is uniform. You can see so much difference, from here to there, everywhere. That's why. Fine, I'm sure. If you think the voice is not wonderful, I'll do something about it and probably work towards the setting. But if I am legible to you, if you can comprehend what I am saying, can I proceed? Last time we only covered one topic. So I was wondering, let's quickly finish at least three topics out of four. Let's try for all of them. So, why is Indian society diverse? This question will come to you direct. Why is Indian society heterogeneous? A question might come. What is the most unique thing about Indian society? What will you say? What will you say? You will say that Indian society is unique because of diversity. What kind of diversity? Let's start talking about these diversities one by one. The first reason behind so much diversity in India is religion. India, please remember, yeah, India, please remember, is a poly-communal society. Now, please, you can remember this word, okay? India is a poly-communal society, okay? What do you mean by polycommunal? Poly is something that's too many, heterogeneous, so many together. Communal, which is composed of different communities. So India is not uniform, but it's a very, very polycommunal society. So let's see which are these main religious communities that are so important to India. Shortly, we will also touch upon the debate on uniform civil code, therefore. Okay. No, that was a different topic. In the previous lecture, there was a topic that we had covered that was about what is Indian society. I have removed it from the PPT. This are the chapters that we have not done. Okay, so all of these are fresh for you. Yeah, polyfaith and poly communities. Very good. So let's remember that how do you define the word religion? Well, religion is nothing but a set of traditions or a set of norms. Norms are certain rules that actually lead to abidance. Abidance means following by a cultural group. When a group of people in a society start following a typical tradition, a norm, or a set of rules, generally that is dependent on some or the other faith that can be referred to as religion. Okay, that can be referred to as religion. So, very good point. Religion has no universal definition because religion itself is something that is intra and inter diverse. It is a variable thing, okay? It is a variable. No, this is not sociology. This is social issues. We are doing GS. We are not doing sociology. No, no, no. Okay, so definitely I'll do that. If you have sent it to me, please send it to me again. Okay. Yeah, they can, definitely. So, religion is also very interpretive. Let's remember, religion is something that you interpret according to yourself. Yeah. So, in sociology, but I'm not teaching sociology right now. I know my name is always associated with sociology. It is so sad. Even if I go and do the Hindu analysis, my students say that, ma'am, is this sociology? I'm like, in my face, is it printed that I can only do sociology? You are just narrowing me down to sociology so much. I am not only for sociology. This is GS actually. Please have some faith in my non-sociological capacities also. So what are we talking about is that religion is nothing but a group of traditions that people generally follow. And technically talking, it can be very interpretive. It is very diverse. For every society, there is a new interpretation of religion, and similarly, even within the same country, every region can have a different interpretation of religion. It's a very, very interpersonal thing. Now, typically, religion has a value. Now, this is something that we must know that, okay, religion can be different from one person to another, but there is one fundamental role that religion plays all the time. What you're saying? Thank you so much. What you're saying was Karl Marx. So, let me quickly break it down for you. Remember that religion has been viewed from a different perspective by everyone. Okay. When you talk about people who do not like religion, typically these are the conflict people, you call them conflict theory. Conflict theory is the biggest example is Karl Marx, who said that religion is the opiate of the masses. Yeah, it's like a poison. If you follow religion, you will become so dumb and you will become so lost in ideology that you will never understand how to change your life for the better. That's what Karl Marx believed. In fact, he also said that the proletariat, you might have studied this in polity or ethics, that the proletariat or the workers are suffering because of religion. Religion tells them to stay quiet and accept their destiny. It makes you fatalistic. What is fatalistic? Somebody who believes in destiny and does not do anything to change that. You become so superstitious, you know. So these are the people who believe in the fatalistic theory. They are conflict theorists. They hate religion. But at the same time, there are some other group of people who like religion, who promote religion. Yeah, exactly. These could be the conservatists, these could be the right wing people. In reality, they are also known as functionalists. Yes, who are the functionalists? Functionalists are those people who love religion, who say that religion has a very big role in society. And what is that role? The role is to create unity and stability. If there is no religion, societies will break down. Now, coolly, if you think once, even today, most of the world is centered on religion. Israel Palestine conflict, the main bone of contention is religion. The Rohingya crisis that started back in 2014-15 period in Myanmar was a fight between minority majority religion, talking about so much aggression between India and Pakistan. Apart from geopolitics, a major issue could be religion. Similarly, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, whether it's Azerbaijan, Armenia, everywhere you will see that countries today play geopolitics based on religion. So, therefore, religion is important because it provides you a sense of unity with your society. In the name of religion, people do anything really. They can do anything. So, that's why it's a good thing. So people have a different perspective. Now, you and I, as students of social issues or social justice or sociology, we cannot say that religion is good or bad. You know, we cannot be judgmental. We have to be neutral there. If somebody asks us, does religion have a value? Well, yes and no. No, because indeed religion does lead to fight, lack of unity, fragmentation, communalism, killings, so much. Now let's talk about countries which were communist in nature. Now, Karl Marx, Lenin, Frederick Engels, these people, 1917 Russian Revolution, Bolshevik Revolution, all those were based on communism and socialism. These people also never believed in religion. Okay, but today, fast forward to 2024, religion is important because within a society, religion will always create unity and stability for people. So the viewpoint is very different, you know. Some people will say religion kills. That's a conflict viewpoint. Some people will say religion enriches you. Religion gives you peace, it gives you faith, it gives you stability. More than that, it makes people follow rules. Sometimes religion can be an excellent way of controlling public behavior, social control. That's what it does for you. So it's a good thing. Then there are some other people also, psychologists. In social issues or sociology, you will call psychologists as symbolic interactionist. Let's not go in detail. But there are some psychologists who believe that religion is nothing but it's a way of communication. How people in a society communicate with each other. Now, today, when we study Indus Valley civilization, Rig Vedic period, Mauryan Empire, or we study the Gupta Empire, so much we learn from their inscriptions and their coinage about religion, you know. So, religion has always determined the path of civilization. You can't say it is unimportant. Okay. Coming back to India, what does it do for India? What does it do for India? Some people will say it is very good. In India, religion has been responsible for a polycultural society. Come on. Right since Islam came into India back in the 12th century. Since then, India has been a hodgepodge. It has been a mixed pot of civilizational richness. Now look at our art architecture, Mughlai art, Indo-Gandhara art, Greco-Roman art. Let's talk about cuisine. Let's talk about art, architecture, music, Hindustani classical music. Let's talk about language inspired by Hindi and Urdu, Hindavi. So it has done good thing for us. Yes. But there is a problem also. If a society is such a stubborn society like India, now for Indian society, I always use the word stubborn. India is a very stubborn society. Why? Because obviously there are constantly circle changes going on. We don't go ahead, we keep rotating in the same axis, you know. So therefore, India is very stubborn there. Literally, we are not ready to secularize as much. No matter what you say. You can say that British came to India. Yes, they did. You can say that globalization has come, American culture has come. Yes, it has. You can say that English education is very important. Yes, it is. You can say that Chandrayaan, now people are reaching moon. Yes, they are. But has that determined India's religious fascination? Has that created a situation where Indians have become less religious? Not really. In fact, more than anything, they are becoming hyper religious. Today we are seeing the kind of radicalism we have never seen before, ever. So, what are we talking about? We are not ready to change. So, always remember one thing, my dear. Whenever you write about Indian society in social issues, GS paper 1, please remember this one sentence from me all the time. My sociology students will always remember, everybody should, that India does change. Like most other countries of the world, we also change. But since we change in circle, in India, all the changes that we are experiencing, they are only functional, or you can say that they are only positional. They are not structural. Now, this is something that you must remember by heart. Even if you are writing social issues and if you're sociology, then it should be like a part of your blood already now. That in India, we have positional changes, not structural changes. This is Indian society for us. Okay. So, what kind of religious diversity do we have? What do we mean by this? Good question. We are trying to say that whatever changes are happening in Indian society, they are very positional. What is a positional change? A positional change is a change that happens in a very artificial level, superficial level. If you ask me, ma'am, please change the studio, change it. Okay. I will just keep one furniture from here, one furniture there. That is called positional change. But a structural change is a deep change. It's a deeper change where you change something fundamentally. If I were to do structural change, I would have completely changed this room, demolished, and then create a new structure, right? So when you change something completely, that's a structural change. When you change something artificially, that's a positional change. In Indian society, things have changed, but only positionally. Women empowerment, yes, but not structurally, only positionally. Talking about religion, is religion not important anymore? It is, but at the same time, there are changes, but then all of these are positional, they are not structural. Why? Because even today, communal violence is paramount. Everything, joint family, talk about language, talk about food, all these are positional changes. So please remember, they are not permanent. Very well said. Exactly. Even women positional. Now let's talk about functional positional. Now, functionalism is the theory which believes that in a society, everything has a value, even if it's a bad thing. Religion is very good. Family is very good. They will never criticize anyone. Never. So they will never want any deep change to happen. They are happy with the way things are. So functionalists will always promote positional changes. They will never talk about deeper changes. That's the link between the two. Okay. Now let's see what kind of religious diversities do we have. Well, of course, according to the 2011 census of India, let's remember 2011. Yeah, yeah, for them it's good. Crime is also good. It's shocking, yeah, but functionalists say that crime is also good because unless crime happens, you will never be able to understand how should good rules be made. If crime happens, it becomes a yardstick for other people to not copy like that. It is a non-normative behavior. So we should not behave like that. As we delve deeper into these topics, you will also learn theories about them. It's true. They believe in status quo. True. True. Okay, let's focus here first. The 2011 census was the first paperless census of India. It was also known as the social economic census. You know why was 2011 census so important for India? Because it was the first census in India which also counted the transgender population in India. Always remember. So whenever you are talking about changes in the life of transgender people, do remember 2011 census, the social economic census of 2011 was the first one to count the population of transgender people in India. Obviously, it was a wrong calculation because they said barely 4% people are transgender. That was wrong, but at least it tried. So, talking about how many religions coexist in India. Why are we diverse in religion? Because we know that as per the same census, it is Hinduism, that is about 80%, that's majority, followed by Islam, to be followed by Christianity, to be followed by Sikhism, and then comes Buddhism, Jainism, plus minute pockets of many other unknown religions like Zoroastrianism. We have the, Sanamahism, and many other Taoism inspired religions that have been inspired by Chinese religions. So many of them exist, in small pocket. Yeah, Jews and so many kind of people are there. Some are also people who do not believe in any religion. They are known as atheist. So different kind of people exist in India. There is a hodgepodge. There is a complete diversity here. But the problem is, even within these major religions, there are small sects that are situated. Now, a very good question can be, why is a sect different from a religion? Are they different? Yes, they are, because a religion is a broad ideology that believes in certain traditions, practices, and values. But even within that religion, sometimes there are small groups of people who follow a particular leader, typically called as cult leader. They are a separate group altogether. Rather than following the practices of mainstream religion, they will follow their own cult leader. It's about cultism, or cultism also is a good word for it. A very good example could be Vaishnava system. Another good example could be sometimes people follow religious leaders. It's very common in India that rather than following, yeah, different, no, that is different. That is different. This is a little different. True. Cult is slightly different. Sect and cult are slightly different. Sects are small, yeah, like Guru Nanak Sahib, exactly. And that could be called a sort of different sect altogether. That within the same religion, people have different sects. Sometimes they start believing too much in individuals. Swami Nityananda is a good example there. A lot of people migrated with him to Kailasa. What was that? Now, that is occultism. When you believe so much in a human being, it's a cult following. They blindly believe in their leader, Namdharis, and so many of them. Like even in Buddhism, you have what do you call them? Hinayana, Mahayana, so many of them. Jainism also, Shwetambara, Digambara, Kuka movement, absolutely. Dr. Ambedkar, what you call as Neo Buddhism, under Dr. Ambedkar, of course. These are different kind of, you can call them sects, yes, in a way. That's also true. Yes, that is also sect only. Ultimately, yeah, Jai Bhim, and there are variety in India, really. So that's what makes it even more pluralistic, that let alone that you have major seven religions. Apart from that, also you have various cult followings too. True. A sect is typically an offshoot of a religion. They exist like an umbrella within the broader religion. Tirthankaras, Alwars, Nayanars. True. Very good. All of that. It's another smaller branch of a religion. Exactly. And cult is when people start believing in a one individual leader because of charisma. It's a charismatic value. Somebody who is very impressive can have a charisma, like all these leaders. Swami Nityananda. No. Don't now. Please don't assume that I'm also going to Kailasha now. Don't imagine next time ma'am will be in a studio in Kailasha. Now, I'm not saying I'm a fan. I'm telling you people believe in cultism. Now, having said that, in India you have so much diversity because of that, and this has also contributed to unity in diversity in India. No, Me Too movement is not a sect or a cult. This is neo-feminism. We'll talk about it some other time. When you say Me Too movement, it is a social media movement that is a feminist ideology. Neo-feminism, we call it. I'll discuss this later. So therefore, this has contributed to unity in diversity, which means that this word unity in diversity came from Dr. Jawaharlal Nehru, who said that in India we have unity despite such diversity. So, in reality, it means unity without uniformity and diversity without fragmentation. Despite all these differences, we are united. And despite so many differences, we don't break apart into pieces, we don't tear apart. Right? So, therefore, another very good word at this point that you must know is that Indian society is syncretic. Please remember, very important for social issues. Now, what is syncretic? A syncretic is a quality of a sponge like quality. A sponge will keep absorbing things. The more water you put in it, the more enlarged it becomes, but it never breaks down into pieces. It will never get dismembered. It will only swell up. That's the beauty of syncretism. Indian society is very syncretic. From the very beginning, right from 5th and 6th century BCs, it has been experiencing foreign invasions, whether it's Arab, whether it's Turks, whether it's your Shakas, Kushans, Huns, all of them. So many people came in India. They left behind their impact. Christian missionaries, Arabic came, so many of them. They kept coming constantly. Mughal dynasty, yeah, so many of them. But what happened? Did they break Indian society into pieces? No. Indian society kept on adapting. It's very versatile. It's very versatile. So, therefore, it is also very syncretic. It has a huge capacity to absorb as much as it gets. And it keeps changing in its form, but it never breaks apart. So, that's the beauty of unity in diversity in India. Now, let's remember people ask you often a question that is India secularizing? Now, somebody really asked a question that, ma'am, what's the difference between secular and secularize? So, my dear, always remember that secularism. Now, please remember, I always tell this in every lecture of mine. I believe that whenever a word is ISM, my dear, it's a thought, it's an ideology. Whenever some word comes after SATION, it becomes a process. A process is always ongoing or continuous, right? So when you say secularism, it's a belief. It's a belief that every religion is equal in the eyes of law, government, or constitution. 42nd Amendment Act, 1976. India is a sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic. Secular, it will not differentiate between people on religion. Everyone is equal for law. Secularization is a different thing. It's a process through which people become less religious and more differentiated. They believe less in religion. Yeah, true. Very well said. So, on that note, is Indian society secularizing? What do you think so? Not really, because it is very, very positional, not structural. Now, let's talk about the 2001 census. You know what? In 2001 census, only about zero point 0.7 million people in India said that we are atheist. We don't believe in any religion. We are non-religious. We don't trust any religion. Now, these people did not state that they have a particular religion, but their number actually has swelled up to about 2.9 million by the time of 2011 census. So, which means numerically, the number of people who are not believing in religion is coming up. It's increasing. So, we should secularize. But other social realities say that we are not secularizing. There is a big confusion here. Also, obviously, because when you talk about Article 44 of the Constitution, Uniform Civil Code, there are half people who support it, and there are other half who are strictly against it, which means we are in a debate today among people who are ready to secularize and among people who are absolutely not ready to secularize. What is this big debate of Article 44, therefore? Now, Article 44 refers to a directive principle of state policy that deals with Indian government should try to create same or uniform civil law for every Indian citizen, no matter which religion, which caste, or which community he or she comes from. So, which means that we should have uniform laws for everyone. But let's understand a little bit. Is uniform civil code an attack to religious diversity? Is uniform civil code an attack to a particular community? Well, the answer is very clear. Answer you decide, I'll just give you the pointers. What does it mean, UCC? Now, UCC clearly means that people will follow the same rules when it comes to five areas of civil life. What are these areas of civil life? One is marriage, important registry of marriage, adoption, same rules regarding adopting a child. Another is maintenance. Maintenance is the amount that a man has to give his wife after divorce or separation. Another is divorce. Yes. Another is property inheritance. So these are the five areas of civil life on which UCC applies. What is wrong in that? No government is forcing anybody to stop doing their worship. A lot of people who have some understanding but not thorough understanding of Indian constitution often complain that UCC is an attack to Article 29 of the Constitution. It is an attack to Article 25 of the Constitution. Now, as students of social issues, my dear, you must know by heart every single article from Article 21, right to life and liberty, to Article 32, constitutional remedies. Because between these 10 articles, 11 articles, 21 to 32, entire social issue comes. Entire social issue comes. There are some more, but these are the most important. Article 25, PPP, right to practice, profess, and propagate your religion and culture. People say UCC is attacking Article 25. Our constitution is giving us the right to worship anything in any way we want, to use any language we like, to maintain institutions of education in our language and culture. Minorities have all the valid protection. Then how can you impose UCC on us? But UCC is not being imposed on anybody's faith or tradition. UCC is only getting imposed on these five areas of civil life, because it is these five areas which determine the fate of women. Majority number of times it is women who are victims of misogynistic attitude in India, owing to marriages, divorces, owing to dowry, owing to lack of right in parents' property. All of that will be settled if UCC is implemented. Hence, it is a very pro-women policy. It is like allowance, yes. It is a very pro-woman stand. And therefore, there is no need to worry really that UCC is going to hurt Article 25 or Article 29 on minority rights at all. Also, let's remember that please always never forget that in India, although there are many minorities, many minorities, children are minority, elderly people are minority, transgender are minority, people with benchmark disabilities, PWDs are minority, OBCs are minority, scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, everyone is a minority, but still the Indian constitution, the honorable constitution of India, only recognizes two categories of minorities constitutionally. One is a linguistic minority and the other is a religious minority. Please be very sure about that. Very sure about that. So whatever constitution will do to help minority will only be targeted towards linguistic and religious minorities. Whatever provisions are made for other category of minorities, whether it be women or whether it be transgender or whether it be your elderly people, they will be protected by extra constitutional measures, non-constitutional. In constitution, only two sets of minorities are respected and acknowledged. Always remember. That is also a problem because many people complain that India's constitution has a very narrow definition of minority. So be it, but that's the reality. Remember that. Right? Very good. That's a very good question you're asking. Let me answer you that question. You say that, what about the provisions for infringement of religious customs and traditions? That's a very good question. A lot of people are asking this question. It's divorce here, inheritance. Pardon me for the bad handwriting, inheritance. A lot of people ask me this question all the time. In fact, in every class, we have this small debate going on that, ma'am, Article 25 is right to freely practice, propagate, and profess your religion and culture. Then how come? Is UCC not trying to stop that? When we practice our culture, marriage and divorce and adoption are a part of it. Then aren't we trying to harm Article 25? And my reply is wait. Listen to me carefully. You are talking about Article 25, right to freely practice, profess, and propagate your culture. But have you ever noticed Article 25, subclause 1 or Article 25, subclause 2? The same Article 25 that gives a minority or any individual in India the freedom to do whatever they like in terms of religion and culture should also know that Article 25, subclause 1 says that until it is not against public health, public morality, and public order. What about that? So, when people are allowing customs that are against the happiness and stability of women, does that not come under Article 21? Similarly, Article 25, subclause 2, if Indian government wants, it can do some kind of change or interference in the life of religious communities for the purpose of social reform. So, therefore, whether the government abandons sati or dowry, whether the government abandons triple talaq, or today when the talk is going on about halala banning, or whether the government says that child marriage is a crime, the government is referring to its powers given by the constitution under Article 25, subclause 2, which clearly says that for the purpose of social reform, religion has been changed, it will be changed, and it is absolutely the right of the government. In India, for a very long time, people from lower caste communities were not allowed to enter into temples. The government once again used its power under Article 25, subclause 2. So always remember, there is a difference between Indian secularism and Western secularism. If secularism means for government everyone is equal, in the West the government has no right to interfere in religion. In India, government has the right to interfere. We are not called non-interfering kind of secularism. We are non-discriminatory variety of secularism. Therefore, I will teach you the topic of secularism separately, but just remember that Indian secularism is called soft or positive secularism. Western secularism is called hard or negative secularism, because there the government cannot say anything to religion and religion cannot say anything to government. But here it's not like that. Under Article 25(1) and under Article 25(2), please understand these through your polity book. These are very important for you. The government will interfere in religion if it feels the need to protect people, to reform them, and to create a better society. So in India, it is allowed. And hence, you can't say that the government is exceeding Article 25. No, it's not. Please understand Article 25, subclause 2, and then you might understand the government is doing something that's very righteous, in fact. Now, apart from that, Uniform Civil Code is therefore a big cause of debate today, because as I said, India is polycultural, and therefore even if UCC is justified, the biggest problem UCC is trying to create today is it is trying to create a sense of persecution among India's religious communities, particularly minorities. So, what is really needed right now is a better clarity, a better debate, and a better discussion in media, social media, and education institutions about various facets of Article 25. People need to interpret Indian Constitution in holistic way. A lot of people who are saying that secularism is under threat with UCC, please understand that Indian secularism is not non-interfering. It is non-discriminatory from the very beginning, whether it be banning of sati in 1829 to the recent 2019 verdict on triple talaq. All these are initiatives taken by the government to improve religion. Okay. Also remember that there is a special act in India which is known as Special Marriage Act 1954. This was enacted in 1954. The purpose of this act is that any Indian can marry anybody. They can be from other religion, other caste, other community, any gotra, everything is allowed. Because the government recognizes all marriages as legal if it is happening between two adult consenting individuals. So therefore, you can say that this is also an attack on secularism. But it's not, right? Exactly. True. That's very true. Exactly. So if secularism means that you are neutral towards every religion, the reason why so many people are becoming atheists today could be for different reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons why people become secularized is Western impact and globalization. When you constantly migrate between countries, you constantly experience newer cultures. Sometimes it's then very easy for you to forget your own culture and probably imbibe a Western value, but that's a very individual choice. I think the lesser you are dependent on your community, the more you will secularize. The more you are dependent on your community, the lesser you will secularize. It's as simple as that. All right. So let's quickly talk about the question that is right here. It's legal. It's every bit legal. Similarly, you talk about the anti-conversion law that was passed recently in 2022. People say that under anti-conversion law, one person, if they convert into another religion, it's a crime. Again, it is not understood properly by people. There is no awareness on that among population. It is not like that. The government is not saying you can't convert. You can, but it is like only when you are willing to convert, then you can convert. Forced conversion through marriage or for the purpose of religious conversion only is something that's prohibited. That is becoming a punishable crime. But willingly, if you convert for ethical reasons, it's absolutely valid. So these are certain areas which have actually, they are very threatening to today's unity. And I think that's something that needs better clarity, really. It could have, definitely, because when the government says that this lady deserves protection, this lady cannot be dumped without any reason only because of triple talaq. Obviously, it was a very valid verdict that you cannot leave a woman just like that without giving her maintenance. So UCC will definitely have an impact on lives of such women who have been left by their husbands and not been supported financially. Definitely, it will be a very, very big support for them. So now talking about the question that Indian society is a melting pot of religious diversity. Comment, it's a very straight question, but in GS paper 1, you do get such simple straight questions. How do you attempt this question? I told you every question has to begin with a short intro. It's a 10 marks question only. So very short intro, but in the intro, please define the keywords. What is religious diversity? What is Indian society? Please begin writing that Indian society is a very unique society. It is very different from most other societies because it is a mixture of separate other composite societies that are situated inside it like an umbrella. Therefore, Indian society is known for its heterogeneity. Now, Indian society is a melting pot of religious diversity, correct? When we say that Indian society is heterogeneous, we mean that there are many kind of diversities in India. So let us elaborate on one of the most fundamental type of diversity, that is religious diversity. So you can begin in the introduction itself that India is home to, or India is a cradle of many religions that have been coexisting. We can call this polycommunal culture. And now in the body, please talk about what is religious diversity. Point number one, it would be like in India you have, please give the data from 2011 census. What is the percentage of various communities in India? Please talk about how, therefore, we maintain unity without uniformity, diversity without fragmentation. Please talk about how Indian Constitution, whether it's Article 14, right to equality, whether it's Article 17, right to protect against untouchability, whether it's Article 19, right to freedom, or Article 21, right to life, right to liberty. All of these articles have guaranteed equality to every citizen, irrespective of religious following. Besides, there are a set of articles that begin from 25 and they end at 29 that are all supporting religious minorities in India, particularly linguistic and religious. But still in India today, we are experiencing communal violence and insecurity, minority persecution. A biggest example is Article 44 UCC. The fact that it is only applicable to civil life and yet it is causing consternation among people is an evident example enough to show that although we have religious diversity in India and we are a hybrid culture, but there are problems. It is not a very smooth situation and constantly, therefore, it is an asset, but also it is very challenging. That's all. Yes, yes, yes. You must mention constitution for social issues paper 1 and social justice paper 2. You cannot live without articles. Fine, if that's your concern, it gives me another idea. In one of the next social issues webinar, whenever we will have it, let me only deal with constitutional articles that we should need to know in social issues. Maybe that will help you. Sure, in one of the webinars, we'll take it up. Religion versus mystification, religion versus magic versus science. Very interesting. Definitely, I'll look this over. In fact, whichever topics you like, whichever topics you enjoy, whichever topics thrill you, whichever you think are relevant from social issues and social justice perspective, please let me know. I will keep including those topics. Definitely, I'll take them up. Definitely. LGBT is a major minority group today. Major minority group. No, 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 no. It's not mandatory that every time you write pros and cons, it's a very short question, only 150 words. What you do is please explain religious diversity. In just two sentences, talk about how is it good. In just two sentences, talk about it is also a very big challenge. For example, UCC. Don't go in detail, you can write both sides. In the conclusion, you can write same thing that although religious diversity could be a blessing because it has led to a rich hybrid culture in India, whether it's art architecture, whether it's cuisine language, but it is also very difficult because today we are seeing communal violence and today we are also experiencing the dispute over UCC. No, you don't have to explain melting pot. When you are using the word heterogeneous, polycultural, composite, automatically it's the same thing that many things are into one. That's a melting pot. The major reason is that if you pick one religion and you try to reform it, highlighting your powers under Article 25, subclause 2, it will not be acceptable by people. You know that religion is majorly fueled by religion. Politics is fueled by religion. So, in that case, if you pick up one religion and you target it and reform it, it will cause further violence in the country. So, UCC is a lesser invasive step. You know, you in UCC you are not particularly telling somebody that you are bad and you need to change. You are actually doing a blanket transformation among everyone. Also, it is giving an impression that yes, if you abide by the same political identity, you better have laws which match that political similarity. So there's nothing wrong in that, really. Now, in Goa, for ages, people have been following UCC because it's still being carried on as a Portuguese legacy. But that's fine. It happens. No, no. In social issues and social justice, you don't have to go into sociology thinkers. If there is a good definition that you want to highlight, whether it's Durkheim or it's Karl Marx or it's anybody, feel free to do that. You can also use a philosopher or a political thinker. But no, don't go deep into sociology. This is social issues. It is touching sociology, but it is not sociology. Against UCC, if you talk about my sentiments, then what I would say is that it's a very difficult to implement project. Second problem I have personally with UCC is that it's implemented in my own state. I am an Uttarakhandi and I know the kind of dispute that's on back home. But what I would say as an individual is also that there is always a lack of awareness. Like, the problem with government is that it will make good rules and then it will just blanket it upon people. But the problem is that unless you create a better dialogue on that, unless you give a better explanation on that, it's very bad strategy to just implement a blanket rule. So in my situation, I would comment it's a very good step, but definitely it's a difficult to implement step. So please create awareness. Most of the people who are criticizing it are still not clear about its intention. So once you do that, things will get better. So it is not applicable to each and every single tribe in India. Now that's a whole different debate. When you talk about tribals, we also talk about things like assimilationist versus isolationist debate. We can also take it up sometimes. And on various tribals, UCC will not be imposed because tribals are supposed to be unique communities, and the government also tries to sometimes keep them away. Yeah, that is something that I find a little difficult to digest. The fact that in Uttarakhand the UCC expanded and it also encroached upon right to life and liberty. That's the live-in relationship debate. Now that is something that I cannot probably give comments upon because personally I don't see any sociological relevance of that. Of course, the only relevance I see is from a very conservationist standpoint that it is something that people fear is going to challenge their traditions and their customs and all of that. And apart from that, I have no justification for that either. So no comments on that really. Yes, yes, I have explained that thoroughly. Did you miss that? Define Indian society, define polyculturalism, define religious diversity. Write all these points. How many religions do we have? 2011 census. Please write shortly. Unity in diversity. Please refer to how it is a good thing. Please refer to how it can be a problem because of UCC and other such situations and end the question. That's all. We will cover it in separate webinar. I'll introduce you to all the articles that you should remember. From there, you can just have a PDF and please, you can try to remember it after reading it many times. Pluralism is more than one. When something is in many number, it is plural. In India, we have cultural pluralism because we have many cultures, polyculture. Several books are there in the market. To begin with, I would suggest class 11th and class 12th sociology textbook. It says sociology, it is hardly sociology, it is practically social issues. Yeah, I understand and I respect that, but it's also very, very difficult to change society. It takes years and ages, it's very difficult. Yeah, it does. Definitely. Over glorification of religion will also always lead to problems in society. No, 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 no. Don't go in so much detail. You don't need to remember various sections of IPC. Not really. Very few. Very few. Specifically about homosexuality, 377, specifically about dowry, maybe about rape and molestation, maybe about domestic violence. Just very few. We can talk about that some other time, not all of them. Yes, you can use. Definitely. For that, you could use Nitin Sangwan. Nitin Sangwan is a very good book. Essential Sociology, Nitin Sangwan. It's a very good book, right? So now quickly, let's hop off to the second question of the day. Sorry, second topic of the day. We just spoke about the first type of diversity. We started our lecture by saying India is a diverse society. India is a polycultural society. India is a pluralistic society. India is a heterogeneous society. Second diversity, linguistic diversity. So not only religious, India also has huge linguistic diversity, which means there are many languages and many dialects in India. Languages are ones which have a written script. Those languages which do not have a written script, they are only spoken vocally, can be referred to as dialects. So we all know that India is not only a poly-religious but also a poly-linguistic society. There are composite, many kinds of languages that cut across the country through tribal and non-tribal domains. Okay? Sure, I'll do that. It will be taken negatively by most people, that's true. But once again, since India is a deeply religious society, it's an inevitable thing. Whosoever is the leader will obviously abide by his or her own respective religion. That's also something that people will accept because society deeply is religious. So these are certain ethical dilemmas of living in a society that's polycultural. It's not an easy situation. Definitely, I will. Coming to the second topic now, what is language? You don't need to understand technically, but you need to understand that for social issues, language is important because it is the main or the chief vehicle of culture. Always remember. When I say vehicle of culture, it means that in every society, if culture is about the way people dress, eat, talk, follow traditions and customs, all of that is transmitted from one generation to another generation through language. So, language is the most important medium of communication and hence the most important medium for cultural propagation from one generation to another. In fact, what you can also say is that intergenerational transmission of culture takes place through language only, right? So, language is quite important. Yes, all those who do not have a written version, they are all dialects. True. Deeply talking about, yes, language is also technically a set of symbols that are shared by a particular group of people, which helps them further communicate, which helps them follow same rules, which helps them create a sense of unity among themselves, right? If this is language, then how do you develop a language? Well, language is developed through a process that is referred to as socialization. It's not only a sociology word, it is a very broad English word. Socialization means when somebody talks, communicates and shares their life with other people in the same society. That's called socialization. For example, the more you socialize, the better you will feel, right? Tribals do not like socializing outside their forest. So, socializing is mingling with people, discussing and meeting up with people. So, how do you learn language? Well, you learn language at a very early stage in life through the process of socialization. Now, yeah, intermingling. If language is about transmission of culture, if language is about chief vehicle of culture, if it's about something that comes from socialization, so is India a polylinguistic society? Yes, that's again a major point about India's diversity, that languages spoken in India are divided between many language groups, the chief ones being the Indo-Aryan language group, which is spoken by about 78% of the population. The other happens to be the Dravidian language group, which is again spoken by about 20% of the population of India. And together, both of these, the Indo-Aryan group of languages, for example, Sanskrit, and the Dravidian group of language, for example, Telugu, Kannada, Malayali, Tamil, all of these together are known as Indic languages. Now, why are they known as Indic languages? Because both these languages have come and developed from within India. Okay, so something that is, I'll teach you one more word for society. Do remember that. And you might say so many new words, but that's okay. Learn them at your own step, at your own pace. Now, let's remember something that is taking birth inside your society is known as endogenic. Always remember. Okay. Sanskrit is a very good example. That's an Indo-Aryan language. Modern day Hindi that we use, that came from Hindavi, a mix between Sanskrit and Arabic, eventually Urdu, and today we have Hindi. Again, you can say Indo-Aryan language. Yes, Definitely, Urdu is an Indian language because when from outside it had come, it came in the form of Arabic and Turkish. When it mixed with Hindavi, two languages took birth, Hindi and Urdu. So both are Indic languages. Absolutely, we can say that. So endogenic is the word for something that is indigenous, something that comes from within. Okay, this takes birth from inside your country, so it is endogenic for you. So all these languages, yeah, exactly. All these languages that are spoken primarily in the northern belt of India are the Indo-Aryan languages and Dravidian languages, which are spoken in the peninsular belt in India. They all took birth inside India, and hence they are endogenic languages. But apart from that, there are certain languages, like for example, English. What about English? A certain Parsi. There are certain languages which people say have not come from here. They eventually came from outside and then slowly they got Indianized. So, certain languages which came from outside, even some tribal languages which were not initially Indian, they came from Mongolia, they came from China. So, all these languages are non Indic languages. A very good word, Portuguese in Goa, or maybe French connotations in the areas of French colonies in India. Indic, Indian. Indic is Indian. And Indic language is a language that is Indian. Endogenous. Right? Similarly, non-Indic, imported. A very good word for it, exogenic. So something that comes from outside is exogenic, something that's developed from inside is endogenic. So India is a blend of both. Now talking about data, according to People's Linguistic Survey of India, India has the second highest number of languages spoken in the world, only after another country which has even higher, called Papua New Guinea. So we don't call it Guinea, we say Guinea. There are many such countries, better don't be confused. There is Papua New Guinea, that's an island. Then there is Guyana, French Guyana, that's in South America, French colony. Then you have another one that's called the New Guinea, that's Africa. So be very sure about these three countries, they are different from each other. You might have heard in the ECOWAS news that in West Africa there is a group of countries which has just broken apart. So in that context, you must have heard of the word Guinea. That's different. This is Papua New Guinea. A lot of tribals lay here. It's in the Polynesian Islands. Yeah. So this country has the largest number of languages across the world. After that, of course, is India with 780 number of languages. This is topic two only. It's topic two only, not first one. Okay. Now, having said that, apart from this, India also has under the Schedule 8 of Indian Constitution certain recognized languages, yeah, very good, which are referred to as 22 official languages of India. Now, if you want to remember this, you all know that you have to write a compulsory language paper to pass UPSC. That's language paper A. In that, you can choose any language from 22 languages of India. All these are official Indian languages as per the Constitution. So we have that also. Apart from that, about 20,000 dialects are spoken in the country. Then there are tribal languages that are spoken in the country. Now let's talk about the Kuki Chin community. Let's talk about India's Kukis, Mighties, Misos. There is a huge interaction, even when recently see, that's what I'm telling you. Politics plays a very big role in social issues. It's a very dynamic subject. People think that social issues is like sociology. No, it's not. Socio is quite static, at least first paper. Social issues and social justice is very dynamic. Every time government is introducing a new policy, it gets added to your syllabus. Every time a political issue happens, it is added to your syllabus. Now, recently, the government of India, owing to the crisis in Myanmar, had stopped the free movement regime. Many people in India's Mizoram were so upset about it. They thought that it's an attempt to break uniformity and cultural exchange among the tribals of the region. Right? So you see how much are tribal languages similar and separated from each other? Yeah. So the languages spoken in the Kukichin area are also languages that have offshoots in the northeastern India. There is so much similarity among the tribals there. So similarly, there are tribal languages too. It can happen because although it's a very small island, but tribes are speaking in a variety of languages. Even if you see Andaman has so many different tribes: Sentinelese, Onjis, Jaravas. Look at the variety of languages they talk. From every block, one dialect changes from one to the other. Yeah. For Myanmar, it was banned and Indian. In India, northeastern tribals had a problem. Why? Because they share linguistic similarity there. So there are many languages which have come from outside also, with different races in India. Let's remember about 20,000 dialects in there. Thank you. Then, apart from that, there are certain languages in India, like six of them, which are considered classical language. Now, what is a classical language? Any language that's purely original, very original. It has nothing borrowed from outside. Second, a language which has a very rich script. If two criteria are meeting and it's very old, it becomes a classical language. In India, you have certain Dravidian languages like Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayali, Odia, plus one Indo-Aryan language, Sanskrit, which has been given the status of a classical language also. Yes, absolutely. They have a very rich history and they're very original. Now, another very interesting thing is that soon we will also discuss in our social issues class that how in India, all the Indian states, you might have read this in history and polity, that all Indian states technically are based on linguistic lines only. It all started back in 1953 with Andhra Pradesh becoming first such state, where the Telugu speaking regions were separated from the Tamil speaking regions, right? So, ever since that process was initiated, the government of India has passed a law. That's in 1956, the Languages States Reorganization Act. After that, all the states in India invariably got built on a linguistic criteria. After 2000, another criteria started coming up, that was cultural criteria. Now, just imagine in 2014, Telangana was also created as the last Indian state to get independence, to become separated. 2000, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand. So, all the languages are technically based on either culture, but majorly language. Language is a part of culture. So, in India, what happened? If linguistic is the basis of dividing languages of people, it has also led to a very unique kind of problem. This is referred to as linguistic nationalism. Now, this is slightly dangerous, okay? Because what happens, although all these languages are Indic languages, we respect them and we love them. But when people from different states, they start getting too attached with their state identity and they are not focusing on their you can say national unity or their national identity, that becomes a threat for the country. That's a very big debate in India, that although all the states have been created on linguistic basis, but is that a fair criteria? In fact, has it led to a bigger problem of regionalism based on linguistic diversity? That's also a reality we must face. Now, when the government had thought about imposing Hindi as the government's official language, a lot of South Indian states were not happy with that. Ever since the Dravidian movement, led by Sri E.V. Ramaswamy, had initiated in India, it had targeted caste system and untouchability. That was a very fair agenda. It was a good idea to stop caste system, to fight against Brahmanical dominism. All that was good. But eventually, what happened? Whether it was Mahatma Jyotirao Phule or whether it was later Sri E.V. Ramaswamy, the Periyar, whenever they did these anti Brahman movements, anti caste movements, somewhere down the lane, these movements also started getting identified with anti Hindi sentiment. And therefore, what happened? Many people in Tamil Nadu, yeah, they did experience something that was known as the anti Hindi agitation. People were not happy with imposing Hindi language upon them. They did not want a North Indian and Indo-Aryan language to be imposed on them because for them that language reminded them of caste barriers, of Brahmanical superiority. Hence they were against Hindi Sanskrit. So that led to another adjustment by the government of India, that in the Indian languages, in the Indian Official Languages Act, it was never done because people were not happy with it. So there was no official language, there was no national language. People did not accept it. So under the Official Languages Act 1963, the government did one more compromise. It added another section called Section 3, which said that now for any government work or any official work, English will also be allowed to be used in government offices and in the Parliament of India so that the non Hindi speaking people do not experience any problem. So that was also a compromise that the government made. But the problem is that despite now, for example, there are certain states in India, even today, Nagaland. In Nagaland, still the official language is English. It's not Naga, it's not Hindi, it's English. So there are many states we have this problem going on. Yeah, exactly. It's also rooted in the fact that most of the languages of South India, which are very different from Hindi, but they are more classical in nature, they are more pure and they are much more old. So naturally, people do not accept a language that they are not familiar with, and Indian government does understand that. It's not like it doesn't understand that. Now, recently, when the National Education Policy 2020 came, even then the government had said that we will impose a three-language formula where people in North India will have to learn a Dravidian language and people in South India will have to learn a Hindi apart from English and their own language. But people again did not accept it. Most states denied it. So Indian government has been very accommodative of that demand. We are not imposing any language on anybody, by the way. So that's a very good thing, which means unity in diversity again, right? Now, similarly, in India, all the states were created on these lines. Initially, government did not want, yeah, most people are learning, but only up to a certain base minimum level. The government has not imposed any official blanket language upon anyone so far, right? So apart from that, the Prime Minister of India initially he was not ready to allow such a thing from happening, but much later, as I said, the Abu Fazal Committee, it said that no, we have to create a linguistic basis for states. In 1956, law was passed. Now, do remember, Andhra Pradesh was the first state after independence to be created on language lines. But before independence, there was another state. Do you know the name of that state? Which, yeah, very good. Excellent. That Odisha and today Odisha was the first state that was created even long back. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, isn't it? So that's what. This was before independence, and after independence in 1953, it was Andhra Pradesh. Why did it happen? Yeah, very good. That was back in 1936, like way, way before independence. Now, there was a very senior Congress leader by the name of Sri Poti Sriramalu. He was the one who agitated for the Vishal Andhra movement, the movement to get a separate Andhra Pradesh. It was after his unfortunate demise when he did not eat and his fasting led to his death that yes, the statehood was granted, and eventually this became a trend and many more states then kept coming in India. 1956, when the states reorganization law was passed, only 14 states and 6 UTs were there. Fast forward to today, we have about 28 states and so many UTs already. I'm sure about 7 or 8. So things have changed. And as I said, then Gujarat separated from Bombay, Himachal separated from Punjab, and such process just kept on kicking until 2000 when Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, and Jharkhand were created, and until 2014 when Telangana was also separated. Now, even today, the problem is people are not satisfied. In India, we still have certain demands based on getting a separate state. So, what do you call this phenomena in polity and in social issues where people coming from a particular state, yes, very good, they start demanding a separate identity. When people start demanding a separate state, what is it known as? Definitely, it's regionalism because they are doing it because of regionalism. But what is it known as? What tendency? Very good. It is referred to as separatism. Excellent. So many students get confused between the word separatism and the word secessionism. Now, please remember the words separatism and secessionism are not the same. When we use the word separatism, then different regions within India or different states within India, they want a separate identity. This is okay, still acceptable. Not very good, but still acceptable. Why? Because Article 1 says India is a union of India, that is Bharat, is an indestructible union of destructible states. The Constitution itself says in the beginning that states are destructible. We can change the boundary, we can change the name, we can change the size, we can change the area of state by an act of the parliament, through the parliament procedure. So therefore it's all right. At least you are within the country. That's fine. We can accommodate that. We can manage with that. That's called separatism. Definitely a threat to national unity because it's regionalism. It is a threat, but still okay. But what becomes more toxic, what becomes more dangerous is when people start demanding a separate country from India. They start demanding a separate national identity. That becomes very dangerous. For example, the demand for Khalistan, or for the demand of independent Kashmir, or for the demand of Kamtapur Liberation Organization KLO, or for some Bodoland, or the Naxal demand, which says that no, we want separate Naxalite Maoist states in India. That's the problem, right? So, while separatism is a danger to national unity. It is not a major threat to India's sovereignty. But talking about secessionism, that's a major, major threat to the existence of our country altogether. So while the government can accommodate separatism, no government will ever accommodate secessionism. That's an act of terrorism because union is indestructible. So here is a list of how different states were created. Back in 1970s and 80s, many states of Northeast also became independent. So for example, Meghalaya came from Assam 1972, Tripura, Manipur 1972, and then, as I said, until Telangana was created back in 2014. Now, there is no official language, there is no national language. In India, we have many languages. All 22 languages in Schedule 8 of the Constitution are languages that the government is ready to abide by and follow. Right? And for the sake of parliamentary procedure, they do allow Hindi, they do allow English so that many non Hindi speakers are comfortable with it. That's what we are mentioning. So let's have a look at the question. Now, this question is important because it's very popular in GS paper 1, sometimes in GS paper 2 as well. Language is the primary cause of regional sentiments in India. Please comment. Now, when you are supposed to comment on something, you do not have to discuss in great detail. Normally, you will notice questions that give you the word comment are generally 150 words questions. They are shorter questions because in comment, you are not analyzing in detail. Just express your opinion. So, we will start by introduction as we always do. What is language? We will define. What is regional sentiment in India? We will define that. These are the main keywords. So, language is, you can say, the chief vehicle through which culture and values are transmitted intergenerationally. Language also is a medium of communication between members of society acquired through the process of socialization. Now, in India, we have a culture that is polylinguistic. Not only do we have the largest number of spoken languages in the world after Papua New Guinea, but also we have, say, about 700 something plus languages. We have 22 official languages in Schedule 8 of the Constitution. Do mention data. In social issues and social justice, the more data you mention from Constitution, the better marks you will get. So do mention that how Schedule 8 talks about 22 languages, plus you have a group of Indic languages, Indo-Aryan and Dravidian, plus non-Indic languages like English and Northeastern tribal languages. Please remember, you must write that the main problem of this polylinguistic culture is that it has led to regionalism in India. Regionalism is a sentiment where people feel more attached to a particular state or a geographical entity rather than getting attached to the national identity. Always remember. Okay, that's important. So, therefore, let me also tell you one interesting thing. Regionalism is sometimes also known as negative nationalism. Okay, if nationalism is love for your country, then regionalism is negative nationalism. In India, language is purely responsible for that in a very big way because we can talk about how in 1953 Andhra was created. It all started with the anti-Hindi movement. Eventually, the trend spread on, and then you can quickly give few examples, not many, but you can talk about how Bombay was separated between Gujarat and Maharashtra, 1972, how Manipur, Assam, and all of that came. 2000, we spoke about Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, 2014, Telangana, plus many other demands are still underway. So definitely it's reached to regionalism, it leads to separatism in India. That's all you have to write here. Is that okay? Yes, could be, but not in a very major way. Yeah, you could write about Sripoti Sriramalu. Yes, definitely. Now, not in a major way because when you talk about the failure of 1857, I think the biggest reason why it failed was because of a lack of proper political leadership. Now, at that point of time, we did have a polycultural society, but also because movement was not spreading length and breadth of the country. It was focused in just a few areas. Language diversity was not that big a problem. The major problem was lack of political consciousness. For example, they forcefully made Bahadur Shah the leader. He was not even willing to be a leader. He was so old and ready to retire kind of ruler that time, at that point of time. Now, they selected him. Plus, there was no regional leadership available. There was a poor communication between soldiers. Eventually, of course, there was betrayal at every level. So there are many reasons why it failed. So linguistic diversity is not typically something that we write here, although in one way it could have been, because always in India, unity has been fractured with linguistic diversity. Yeah. True, true. Well said. So, on that note, quickly on to the third topic today. And this is very interesting. The third type of diversity we are talking about. And after this webinar, if we are able to cover all the topics today, now I know I have this very bad image for not finishing topics on time, but then how can I say I'm the only one who talks? You are also talking. Okay, so it's everybody's fault. Okay. Now, on that note, we spoke about two kind of diversities. One diversity was religious, second was linguistic. On to the third diversity, tribal diversity in India. Definitely. But do you understand the connection between the two? Now, when you say that presently the demand for separate states is more because of geographical resources and more because of regional inequalities, please understand that people living in a particular state, why do they associate with each other so much? What is one main commonality between all of them? Is it religion? No. India is poly-religious. Is it caste? No. India is polycaste. It is language at the end of the day. You understand that? So your question is in a hidden way saying the same thing. Indeed, states today are upset about finance commission, vertical devolution. We don't get enough funds, is what everybody says. The government is not sharing enough funds with us. We lack geographical resources. States are fighting over rivers. Now, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu over Kaveri waters. Karnataka, Maharashtra over Shivamoga, Uttarakhand, UP over hydropower. There is a fight in every state typically with neighbors, but definitely it's for the resources. But why? Because they want their own benefit. When you are regionalistic in your attitude, you don't think of pan India development, you think of your own state's development. But what gives you that identity? That identity again is language. So you can say that it is language which gives you a regional identity. And then once you are regional, definitely you will become more and more, you can say, demanding for your own place. So it is all a very interrelated thing that you're saying. Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Language actually gives that regional identity that you're talking about. But that's a very fair point that you made. Indeed, today the fight is more economic. Now, recently, how Hindu is constantly writing articles about the upcoming 16th Finance Commission, which constantly, the biggest debate is how much funds will be devolved, which state will get more or less. So all these, whether it's over river, whether it's over funding, whether it's over areas. Now, 2014, Telangana was separated from Andhra. Today also both the states are fighting over property. That this property is mine, that property was not given to me. Right? True. Yeah, that's also happening. People are getting very saturated with life more easily because the more materialistic you are, the more easily you get tired. So that's why this trend is increasing. Yeah, that's a deeper question. Yeah. Yeah, everybody wants a freebie, welfare, and all of that drama goes on. So, on to the third topic, third kind of diversity, tribal diversity. So, in short, what is a tribe? Now, it's very interesting that when we study sociology or when we study polity or when we study history or when we study social issues and justice, we so much use this word tribe, tribe, tribe. But if you study anthropology, they will never allow you to use the word tribe. It is considered very humiliating. You know, you cannot call somebody a tribal. But because we are not doing anthropology, let's understand what is a tribe in a very, very neutral and a very respectful way. Now, a tribe is a group of people who are experiencing some kind of geographical exclusion. When I say geographical exclusion, a much better word to use is spatial segregation. Now, what do you understand by the word spatial segregation? Segregation means when something is very separated, and spatial means something that has to do with geography. The word spatial means related to space. So, tribals are groups which experience physical segregation, geographical spatial segregation, right? They either live in forest or they live in some kind of a place which is mountainous or a desert or typically an area that's near the river valley. Then you might object. And you and I may not be on the same page today. I'm so apologetic. If you're an anthropology student, then kindly uh, forgive me for using the word, but I have no choice. I have to. So they experience geographical segregation. Also, remember, they are people who have a very, very different, a very, very unique, and a very separate subculture. Their culture is not like most mainstream cultures. Tribals usually always have a dialect. They have their own way of speaking. Tribals always have a unique religion. They agreed in India today because of migration, assimilation, poverty. You might argue that in Lakshadweep and Andaman, most of the tribals are Muslims, Islamic. In Northeast India, most tribals are Christians already. In Central India, most tribals are Hindus already. And why are you saying that tribals have a separate religion? Because all these tribals have now got converted and assimilated into society. In the northeast part of India, there was a massive conversion attempt being done. In the case of Ladakh and all, because Arabic traders had reached India way before, even much before the 12th century. So what happened? That influence catches on, geographically. So agreed, people later get converted into different religions because majority villages in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar are Hindu. So that's why tribals who then come out because of poverty, they start getting converted into Hinduism or any other religion for that matter. But it doesn't mean that inherently tribals have some well-known religion. No, technically they always have a very unique form of worship. Either it is known as totemism or it is known as animism. Animism is the belief where you think that non-living things have a life, they have a value. For example, you would believe that a stone has a symbolic power, you will worship that. In a way, all religions do some kind of animism and totemism, but these do very specifically. Technically, they believe that all natural resources are infested with the spirit of their ancestor, and hence they worship them. So they are very deeply into nature worship. Okay, these are certain unique things about tribals. Now, talking about Indian tribals particularly, there are some other things to think about. One of the biggest thing is that tribals in India have a very poor social economic development. When I say social economic development, it's such a cliched word, but what does it mean? Economic means they are poor, nothing short of poor. They don't have enough employment, they don't have enough assets, they don't have enough cattle, neither do they have any skills properly to get a job. When I say they are socially poor, I mean to say that neither do they have a social capital. They lack contacts with non tribal communities to help them. Apart from that, they also experience backwardness. Like they are still, some of them are living in a pre industrial situation. Some of them are not even touched by technology. Some of them do not have access to right medical care or education or any such thing. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Lovely quote by Charles Darwin. Yeah, true. So we are all tribals. We are all in different places of evolution, but you need a bigger heart to imagine. Everybody has a sense of cultural superiority, like we are the best. It's not like that. Everybody is in a different space when it comes to evolution, and so are these people. And now they do have social economic development that's very poor. Let's imagine. It is very poor. Having said that, how many tribes does India have now? Technically talking, as per 2011 census, India has about 8.6% population that can be considered as tribals. But the biggest mistake that people make is that they think that tribe is a uniform group. They think that tribe is a homogeneous category in India. It's not. Just like Indian society is very diverse, tribals are also pluralistic community in India. Tribal have huge diversity in India. Now you won't believe me, but in the Northeast, within the same state, why will you not believe me? And the ongoing cookie mighty conflict, can you imagine? Within the same state, tribals who share a same geographical area are animosity struck. They are fighting with each other. There's a killing and molestation going on. So you can imagine the level of diversity among tribes. The biggest problem existing in people's mindset towards studying these tribals ever since colonial era is to treat them as one composite group. It's not true. While categories like they are very primitive, they are geographically isolated, they have a distinct unique religion and culture and language, are certain standard things that are found in tribals, but not every tribal will display the same language. There is diversity. Not all of them will have the same religion. There is diversity. Not all of them will have the same culture like us. Now, for example, many tribes in Northeast India, let's talk about Meghalaya, Garo, Khasi, Jaintia, they are matriarchal. Matriarchal, where a woman is the head of the family, where property is given to a woman, where children will take the name of their mother. That's called matriarchy, opposite of what we have, patriarchy. Tribals are unique. Some of them have marriages which are so diverse, you'll be surprised to know. For example, there are certain tribes in which marriage by abduction is a very common phenomenon, where the groom has to come and kidnap the bride. It's considered very respectable custom. You see, there is polygamy, which is openly practiced. So, yes, true. So there are many many diversities of tribal culture. You cannot club them into one category at all. So therefore, we must understand that they are unique from each other. Even if they occupy about 8.6% of the total, yeah, I think so too. 8.6% of the total population of the whole country, let's also assume that not only are they diverse, tribals are in different categories altogether. For example, there is one that is scheduled tribe. Some people think that all tribals in India are scheduled tribes. No, it's not like that. So many castes are there in India. Are all of them scheduled caste? No. Only the ones which the constitution has set. Now, please understand one very basic funda, okay? Words like caste, words like tribe, they are social words, cultural words. Society has created these words. But the word schedule is not a social word, it is a political word. It is a constitutional word. Okay, it's a legal word. So wherever the word schedule comes, which means as mentioned in the constitution, as scheduled in the constitution. While there are so many tribes in India, but only the ones which the government feels are backward and they need help are scheduled tribes. Similarly, you have certain other tribes which are known as DNCs or DNTs. I'm sure you must have heard about them. Denotified tribals. It's a very long history. During the British Raj, the British government was very, very ruthless on tribals. You might have heard about the Santhal rebellion. You might have heard about Birsa Munda. You might have heard about the Munda rebellion. Now, British were trying to massacre the tribals. They were so unfair to them. You know what? For a very long time, unique practices of these tribals were considered as criminals by the British. How ruthless. And British called them as criminal tribes of India. It was only by the initiative of Dr. Jawaharlal Nehru post independence in 1951 1952 that criminalized tribals were decriminalized. Their status was improved. The criminal tag was removed, and then they were becoming assimilated in society. But imagine the level of trauma and the level of stigma that they must have gone through all these years of being criminalized without any mistake. Hence, DNTs are those which were then decriminalized later on. Plus, there is a separate category which most people do not know about. That's called PVTG. PVTG are very, very backward tribals. Agreed, many tribals in India have a problem. But PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, are those who are very, very, very poor. They are so poor that today they are living in the pre-industrial era. They have zero machinery, zero technology to help them. The worst part about them is that their population is declining with every decade. That's the worst part about them. That not only are we losing their population, we are also losing their unique culture. Now, the state in India which has the maximum number of PVTGs is Odisha. Very well said. Now, in Odisha, we have this, a particular belt that exists, the KBK corridor. This area in Odisha is an area where you will find majority of PVTGs being situated. PVTGs are tribals who were living in such you can say backward situation that none of them were ever introduced into modern education. None of them ever received any kind of welfare policy benefit. Also because they were isolated. For a very long time. In fact, after independence, we have this debate going on that whether tribals should be brought out of their hiding place and forcefully assimilated into the country? Or should we only give them welfare while being separated from them? Or should we completely isolate them, not bother about them, let them live their life, let's not disturb them? So these were certain ideologies, isolationist versus assimilationist versus welfarist debate. As a result of all of that, today government of India is taking a mixed policy. Let's isolate also, let's do some welfare also. Some of the tribals are also getting now introduced into the mainstream culture as well. But still, the problem is when tribals are too poor, and because of this poverty, obviously they cannot afford medical care and good food. They are malnourished. So what happens? Maternal mortality is very high among them. Young women die in giving birth. Hence, population is also declining. Absolutely. Besides, naxalism was a bigger problem. Now, most of the states like Kerala, West Bengal, Andhra, they were very, very infested by Naxalism, Maoist movement. And hence what happens? Already these tribals are poor and deprived. They feel that the government is not responsible towards them. And now these Naxals go and radicalize them. Or they give them some money and forcefully make them fight for separation or secessionism. That further leads to poverty and deprivation and lack of government welfare benefits. So many, many problems are existing. Naxalites are people who are radicals. Radicals in their own way because they believe that they are trying to implement complete socialistic communist ideology. They want to force the government to give in to their demands. They feel that they have been neglected for a long time. Typically radicals. There is always a contradiction there. The problem is, let's understand that whenever you are trying to develop tribals, whenever you are trying to bring some development to the tribals, always understand that you are in some way harming them, you are in some way not letting them be isolated. So the problem is a very complicated problem. It's like, they don't need development from us, they just need a share of natural resources. First, we have snatched the natural resources, and now we talk about an imposed development. So that's the contradiction, practically, right? So now talking about PVTGs, for a very long time, the government was not aware about who they are. He's very, very vulnerable. Now, what's this word vulnerable? Please remember, vulnerable is somebody who is prone to a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of concerns. Okay. It all means other people, many other people included, a group. So the Dhibar Commission of 1973 had spoken about who are the PVTGs, and it said that typically in India we have about 75 PVTGs spread across 17 states and UTs in India, Odisha being the highest one among them. And these PVTGs are very particularly poor. Also remember, because most of these tribals live in areas which are next to river, mountains or forests, and ever since independence the government has been creating wildlife parks and bird sanctuaries. The government has been creating railways, highways, airports, industrialization has been happening, mining is going on. Because of all that, the natural habitat of these tribals where they used to live gets severely fragmented. Once they get displaced, with lack of education, they do not find any job or any particular productive enterprise to do. Then what happens to them? Further, they become poor, they borrow money, and they completely remain in indebtedness, that is, under debt all the time. Definitely, definitely. It's the same subject. Also, remember, when somebody borrows money and the next generation is not able to repay that money, a whole family goes into a debt cycle, and that contributes to a new phenomena among these tribals, which is known as intergenerational poverty. What is poverty? Deprivation. But when poverty consists of many generations within the same family, because constantly people were borrowing and others were not able to repay, it's known as intergenerational poverty. That's what these tribals are predisposed to. Plus, the PVTGs, particularly, are also on the brink of extinction because they have a declining or a very stagnant population. This could be owing to early marriages, early pregnancy, and yet poor medical care, poor nourishment, and therefore a high degree of child, infant, and maternal mortality. So, therefore, certain examples of PVTGs are the Birhor, Bondo, for example, Saura tribes, Kondh, Lanchia, Kharias, and many such. Now, you don't need to remember all of these. For social issues and social justice, kindly remember the names of three PVTGs. That's all. That's all. Nothing more than that. It is about to start. I think we're already started. I'm not sure. Very soon, probably this week. Now, let's talk about preventing and protecting tribals. So you know that most of the prevention development activity towards tribals is undertaken by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Earlier, it was only a department, not a separate ministry. But much later, it was given the status of a full ministry under the Indian government. Today, it is taking care of various financing activities to create skills among tribals, to promote education among tribals, free medical camp for tribals, plus also online selling tribal products. That's a very important initiative that it does. Always remember, just a few more minutes to go. Always remember that Ministry of Tribal Affairs also has an arm which is known as TriFed. TriFed does this basic job of giving MSP on MFP. Do you understand that? Always remember. Ministry of Tribal Affairs provides minimum support price on minor forest products. What is minimum support price? Now, recently you might have heard in the news how the government is giving some kind of fair and remunerative price to who gets that in India? Fair and remunerative price has been increased for which cultivators in India? Very good. Sugarcane cultivators in India, brilliant. So if sugarcane cultivators are getting a kind of increase in some subsidy, similarly, most other people in India, the main farmers in India, they get minimum support price. Now, minimum support price is also called as subsidy. What is that? Which means the government promises these people that at a fixed price, we will purchase products from you no matter what happens. Even if market is good, market is bad, there is rainfall, there is COVID pandemic, no problem, we will buy at a fixed price from you. Farmers will be happy because they will get a fixed standard income year after the other. It's a very good thing for them. Similarly, the government is through Ministry of Tribal Affairs giving minimum support price to whom? To tribals on minor forest product. What is a minor forest product? Now, most of these tribals work by hand. They don't have much machines and techniques. So they used forest natural resources to make products like basket, honey, herbal medications, jute mats, all of that. TriFed, yeah, an organization of the government of India that actually works for promoting tribal sale, production, the sale of tribal products online and offline both. So all these minor forest products are purchased by the government at a fixed price, further giving income to tribals. Now, at a very constitutional levels, definitely. At a very constitute, also very good point raised by you. MSP not only promotes cultivation of water-intensive crops like rice, which has a huge climate cost to pay, but also it gives further impetus to crops like wheat, rice, and pulses, which have a very high glycemic index, causing diabetes and heart attacks to people. It doesn't really encourage the production of millet and vegetables. That's also a point you must remember. On that note, constitutionally, what does the government do to protect tribals? There are two schedules of the constitution, please remember them. You just spoke about the eighth schedule, 22 languages. Now we are talking about the fifth and the sixth schedules. What's the difference? Please remember. The main difference is that the sixth schedule of the Indian constitution is specifically devoted to tribals of four states. Why? Because these tribals of four states, including Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram, are considered to be anthropological, which means anthropology specimens. What are specimens? They are very, very unique races, Such races are not found in any other state. So, therefore, the tribals of these four states are protected under exclusively sixth schedule. And what does the schedule say? The schedule talks about administering these areas which are inhabited by tribals known as scheduled areas. How to manage them, how to run them, how to govern them, all of that. But if sixth is for the four states, the fifth schedule talks about tribals in all other remaining states of India where tribal population is found, the largest supposedly in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, all of these areas and many others. Odisha. So all of them, typically 10 states, very good. They are all covered by the fifth schedule. The remaining 10. Today, a lot of revolution has come in that also. The government is creating tax. What are tax? Tribal autonomous councils, like in Ladakh, very good, true. In Ladakh, also the tribals are now demanding a separate place. Now, why are they demanding introduction in the strict schedule of the constitution? Is because there are special provisions. Much more power is given to the TAC, Tribal Autonomous Council, because what happens if you get under sixth schedule? Then not only do you get better funds for tribal management from the state governments, but also another benefit is that local tribal population gets major share or major power for governing, for administering. So to find more democratic powers, they are fighting for it, right? So that's the benefit. Today government is managing it through TACs. In TACs, the local people will also get a part in the council, and hence it will become more democratic. So all these issues are then important. And quickly, let's have a look at the question. This is a longer question, 20 marks, 250 words. What does it talk about? It says, what do you understand by the word scheduled tribe? A tribe is a group of people who have a unique subculture. They are spatially segregated or geographically isolated. Plus, they have their own dialect. And in India, you have certain tribals that are recognized by the constitution to be backward and poor and who need welfare, known as scheduled tribes. Which article of the constitution talks about them? Please mention from the PDF. Certain problems associated with them, you know so many of them. Poverty, indebtedness, lack of formal education, cultural isolation, linguistic barriers, development, social economic backwardness, particularly when you talk about the PVTGs. You can talk about how, because of interference from outside, they are also losing their unique culture, which makes them more persecuted. That if we come out, we will lose our unique culture. So these are the various problems confronted by tribals in India. Simple, direct question. In a question like this, because not really, don't go back to the colonial era. Why am I saying don't go back with the colonial era? Is because, my dear, the question is particularly talking about ST. Now, ST was a category created by the constitution that is obviously post independence. So let's focus on ST problems in India. ST problems in India could be so many. Obviously, government is giving them protection, but what all problems they face? Now, if you go back to colonial times, then what happens? At that point of time, there was no clear ST only. Then we are talking about generalized tribal historical problems. If the question would have said, since colonial period, what are the problems? Or give a brief history of tribal problems, then it is better to talk about colonial. Right now, to talk about the contemporary problems only. Also, you can say that. Definitely, because including in the sixth schedule cannot be something that you want and you will get. It is not about a separate statehood you are demanding or not a budget that you want from Finance Commission. When you are saying that sixth schedule has tribal populations which are unique anthropological specimens, you are redefining sixth schedule only if you include certain more areas into it. So obviously, it's a big debate over there. Naxalism, digital fragmentation, definitely infrastructural fragmentation, displacement, loss of culture, so many of them. No, all tribes are not scheduled tribes. Only those who specifically constitution acknowledges are scheduled tribes. Definitely not. If the question has not asked for it, do not mention about it. Be very content specific. Knowledge is good, but only put as much as the question demands. Everybody wants to be called as a scheduled tribe. Why will they not want it? Whenever you get this tag in front of you, scheduled, what is the biggest benefit that you get? Reservation. Why will people not want it? Don't you remember? Gurjar. Don't you remember? Jat Andolan, Gurjar Andolan. What was all that? They wanted to become OBCs and they wanted to become scheduled tribes. Now you will say why? They wanted benefits of reservation. There's a very interesting phenomena actually in social issues now. So that is the problem. One topic leads to other. How should we finish the course? You only tell me. Next time I will bring only three topics. It's very difficult to know. It's such an interesting topic. One thing leads to another. Now I want to talk about something else, about Jat and Gujar. So I have to learn how to control. I will not talk about anything. Let's focus on the last topic before we end. Some other time we'll do that. No, no, no. If I start talking, forget about syllabus. 10 days we'll continue the webinar. That is the problem with me. Full stop only does not is not there in my dictionary. I have to practice self-control. Now, last topic: racial diversity and regionalism in India. This is the last diversity that I want to talk about before we end. One was religion, other was language, third was tribal, the fourth is in front of you, racial diversity. Now, in India, for some reason, regionalism is also associated with racism. You might argue that racism is more in US and all, where people practice apartheid or color bias and all of that. But in India also, there is a problem of racism. Why? Because you believe it or not, somewhere deep down the lane, most people don't understand that, by the way. Huh? I'm just giving you a fresh perspective on racism. That somewhere down the lane in India, the caste system of India also invariably has its roots in racism. Obviously in religion, but also in racism. Now you might ask why? Why do you say that? Caste is within a religion. Caste is about ritual superiority and ritual inferiority. Then why am I talking about race? Because let's go back to when the caste actually started. I'll quickly for a second do some time travel with you and I'll take you back to the Rig Vedic period. And during the Rig Vedic period, when society was very pure, very perfect, there was hardly any problem in theory, in practical reality. At least we believe that. So during that period, there was Varna system. Yes, in Varna system, society was divided only into groups which were fluid. You can change your group whenever you want, and all these groups used to do different jobs on the basis of job that you do. But it was fluid. There was no restriction. Okay. Slowly, what happened? It was the Indo-Aryans, technically, theoretically, who came into India from Central Asia. You might have studied in ancient history. Indo-Aryans were the one who were considering themselves as a very, very pure race. So naturally, what is race? Race means physical features that are similar. So people within a particular race will share certain physical same kind of features. So Aryans would consider themselves very different, tall, broad, and all of that. Naturally, they were different from the race that was indigenous in India, right? So first, what happens when they met each other? It kind of led to a racial clash. That the Aryans would say that yeah, we are the pure race, and we have to conquer everybody in India now. And as people started fighting with each other, some of the Aryans themselves became slowly the Shudra, the lower caste. But most of them, who became the untouchables, the Dalits, so called as Dr. Ambedkar said, were the ones who were the traditional Indian inhabitants. These people were hated by the Aryans. It was a racial hatred, a color hatred, apartheid kind of. And they said that these people are the Dasas or the Dasyus. In fact, your NCRT book says that in Veda, you have a clear word that says Dasyu Hatya. Aryans were very happy about Dasyu Hatya. Dasyu Hatya means murdering of a Dasyu. It's not a crime. They are slaves, they are meant to be slaughtered. You see, there is an element of racism if you talk about the standard history. I don't know whether correct or not because I'm not a historian, but the text that is available to us through various books, we know that there is an element of racism to caste also. But what is racism, and in India, why is it such a big deal? Now, talking about racism, you know that people of a particular race, yeah, it is a linguistic group, but it's also a racial group. Definitely, it's a racial group as well. Now, talking about race, a race is a category of people who share certain same physical features. Now, please never ever get confused between ethnicity and race. Ethnicity is different from race. Okay, a very good example I can give you. The Manipur violence that was going on was a violence between two people who were almost from the same race but different ethnicity. So, ethnicity is a very broad word, it includes race plus culture and religion. Right? Race is a narrow word, it means physical features. So, in India, you have many kinds of races. Technically talking, as per Dr. B.S. Guha, he's a very famous anthropologist and sociologist. Yeah. And this is the only classification you need to know, not in detail, very briefly, that in India you had many races like the Negrito race, you had people like the Proto-Australoid, you had the Mongoloid, plus the Mediterranean race, Western Bashiflas, and eventually the Nordic race. These are the only races in India, right? So if these are the races in India, then for a very long time in India, as you know, people started coming and staying back. But the interesting thing is, if somebody comes into a new society, the people can go physically, but the culture will never go. I always tell my students when I'm teaching them the first chapter of social issues that always remember humans can come and go. We have an entry and we have an exit. But culture will never have an exit. Once it comes, it will always be there. Alexander came, he went away. But Indo Greek culture flourished, isn't it? Arabs came, they went. But today, also, most of the societies, Islamic societies in coastal India near Kerala, are matriarchal. You might ask why. It's because of the influence of Arabic matrilineal. So, you see, cultures don't go away, they always stay there for you. It's very complex. Culture is very complex. So in India, you also have racial diversity. If there is so much racial diversity in India, which has later contributed to some kind of caste problems also, the bigger question is, we spoke about Indian society is diverse, it is pluralistic, it's composite, it is heterogeneous. Why? Religion, language, tribe, race, all of that. Then why are we together? Why are we together? I use the word syncretic. Then why is our society so syncretic? So proudly we say unity in diversity, but why the unity? If there is so much diversity, please break apart. Have a breakup, one culture to other, but we don't have that. There is a reason. As I said, it is various factors of the constitution that disable us to get disengaged from each other. Right? It is our superimposed sense of national political identity which has ensured that India, that is Bharat, shall be an indestructible union of destructible states. Inside India, you can do whatever you want. You want communal violence? Go fight. You want to kill each other? Okay. You want a new state? Take. But if you think of breaking the barriers and if you think of threatening India's sovereignty, then that's not something that shall be allowed. Okay, so therefore, there are various articles of India. Now, somebody recently asked a question: how many articles to remember? Quite a few. Not like all, but some of them. Some articles and some directive principles are important. We'll have a separate session on that. But which are the articles of the Constitution which ensure unity in diversity of India? Biggest is Article 1. India, that's Bharat, will be a union of states. 2. Admission and establishment of new states. 3. New states can come, name can change, area can falter, but still, India will not break. And then you have articles right to equality, 2 article right to freedom, and now it's 10:30. Why are you looking at me like this? I'm very time conscious. I wish I could see my students. Sometimes I have these cravings in online. I wish it was offline. Okay, so it's 10:30. I will take your leave now because prelims are coming, and people who write prelims are very disturbed when I extend my session. So I have started doing early now. Why I want to be upset my students who are writing prelims. Yeah, yeah, there are many tribes who are not scheduled tribes. It's a very good question. Look it up. Many tribes that are not scheduled tribes. Okay, definitely. As per your command is our order. You are the big boss. Student is always right. Ours is ulta philosophy. Students are always right. So definitely we'll have more lectures for social issues and social justice. I'll take your leave now because of the prelims. What happens? It becomes a little heavy for those who are writing exams. Just a few weeks are left, so it's against protocol, and we have been ordered that until 26th May, don't extend the lectures. After that, I will torture. I will not leave before 11. I'm warning you. You are enjoying only for prelims. Go live your life. So I will come back with the last topic. What articles of the Constitution enable this continuity? And then definitely most of the topics that you like, I will take them up. Okay, for notes, as of now, just study the news and news analysis. In the next session, I'll bring you down some current affairs as well. Now, with that, I take your leave. All the very best. Happy festival and all the best for prelims. Those who have the exams, please go and study right now. Those who don't have, you can do what you like, but still study. And good night. Have a very happy weekend. I loved the lecture and I hope so did you. Definitely, we'll come back for another one. It will be, definitely. Okay, I also had lots of fun. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.